Hello, Jamie. How are you doing?
Good. It's almost Thanksgiving.
That's right. By the time I finish this edit, it may be after.
We might be doing like Thanksgiving leftovers. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Which two of the best leftovers combined are turkey and mayo.
No mayo. No.
Are you kidding? Cold turkey and mayonnaise?
No, cold turkey, yes. No mayonnaise. Don't need that in my life at all.
Missing out. You're
No, I'm
Better-
not missing
better-
out. Turkey with cranberry sauce, like all day, every day.
One of Danielle's aunts makes a cranberry sauce that has a lot of booze in it. I'm down with that.
Cranberry sauce is the easiest thing in the world to make. You just
but it's
fresh.
even better with booze in it.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't done that. So I'm a purist on my.
Oh, so you get the ones out of a can?
No. What is this? This is painful.
That's pure cranberry sauce.
No, it's not. I'm talking about cranberries, like the berries. Like you get the berries, and then you sugar and
Boil them.
water and boil and done.
I've been there. It's actually, you're right. It is pretty easy. They pop.
They pop. Yes, it's brilliant.
It is kind of fun. It's kind of because who wants to eat a cranberry?
I mean, who wants
Ever.
to have like that weird gelatinous thing that comes out of a can?
The goo.
I mean, the goo. That's awful. No, that's as bad as mayonnaise.
When I was young, it happened to show up on occasion at my house, but I'm not going to toss anyone under the bus because
mom does listen to this podcast every once in a while. I know
she's a fan and a supporter. We want to keep her in that camp.
Yep, exactly. Just tell her that skip past the first 3 minutes of this episode. She'll be dandy.
Move on. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to episode 89?
Yeah.
90?
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, Mom. Yeah.
It got deleted. So
yeah.
As we approach, I would say one of the funner holidays in American calendar. However, Jamie is a hybrid or a half breed, which, a Canadian American or American Canadian. I don't know.
There is a Canadian Thanksgiving and an American Thanksgiving. Yes.
They
are on different days.
That's right.
But since we live in the States, we have always done the American Thanksgiving, which for obvious reasons, like namely you're out of school or whatever. So
right. Yeah. And you get your hands on some real cranberries.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Cranberries and turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes and
yams.
All the good stuff.
Yams.
But yams.
It's the same thing as a sweet, isn't it the same thing?
Is it? Is it though?
I want to say yes.
I grew some squash in the garden this year. I grew a butternut squash. So I'm going to actually try a butternut squash recipe for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I will report back later.
As long as you don't undercook it, butternut squash is a very delicious seal of approval.
Going to try and keep it simple. So, yeah.
Always is best. So in simple terms, what is your beverage du jour?
Oh, today.
Use my French Canadian du jour.
I'm having the last of the maple pecan that I mentioned.
Pecan coffee. Yeah, I'm gonna like I said, still haven't ventured out, but I will make a little trip to see if I can acquire some. Nobody's offered any porch pickup coffee this year. I guess the pandemic is.
I do have some stuff that I intend to get in the mail for you. So there is that.
Wink.
Capital City coffee is coming your way. So already purchased.
Nice.
In the bag.
Very nice.
So
looking forward to that. That will be hopefully in time to replace this rootless berry kiss, similar to other recent episodes I've been sticking with my Flint favorites, which actually I forgot to mention, and you should have gotten that email. I mean,
I know.
we can make a little hint, right, about a potential collaboration between Rootless Coffee, which I do believe they are a listener and follower of the Twitter page,
and these guys,
and
like us guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Us guys and them.
we will come up with a branded, I don't know how to put it more fun than that. Basically, we will get some coffee sketch coffee or coffee sketch podcast coffee out there to consume
in the real world
in the new year. I think we have to wait.
Yeah, I know we have to wait.
Have it now. We have to wait.
Yes, but
it's like Christmas. You got to wait.
But there's anticipation there. You're building the anticipation, both for ourselves as well as everybody else, that we will encourage to try.
They'll be excited,
and then tell us if it's any good.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I haven't had anything.
We consume enough coffee to probably have a good opinion about it. But
we have a podcast that we do talk about coffee.
Yeah, sometimes
from time to time, right?
And Rootless, does like the graphic aspects of bag design and whatnot for their branded blends. So there's a nice kinship there. I think it's something to look forward to for the new year for sure.
Yeah, in the new year. Yeah, and the what was I going to say? I forgot already. They have another one out now that is kind of neat. It's like, I forget the name now, but it's a little spoof on Big Lebowski. It's got the his robe and the bowling ball. And so, speaking of their graphic design, sort of the kinship and their sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of attitude about labels and things like that. So they keep coming out with some fun stuff. So anyway, I forgot to mention that. But Jamie needs to reply to that email, I think, to make it official. It's your job.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or we need a thumbs up. So it's how do we reintroduce this? Let me show you. I'm going to pull some sketches from Jamie's vault here, but boom. We can talk about this one first or this one, depending your preference. But you have some new sketches here of an event that you've been a participant in the past and sort of in a, what do you call it? A short list of high regard of designers of these installations called the Creek Show, the Walden Creek Show.
Love me some Creek Show.
Yeah.
It's was fortunate to be a selected artist a few years ago with a team, and we're able to release the Kraken on Waller Creek, and then as Photon Fable, and then Photon Fable Redo got re-envisioned in the Umlauf Sculpture Garden. And unlike Creek Show, which is only about 10 days of an installation in downtown Austin, the redo of our Photon Fable was in the Sculpture Garden for almost a year. So that was pretty darn exciting. But yeah, the Creek Show annually is put on by the Waller Creek Conservancy in downtown Austin, and they have tried to garner attention to this watershed area in the downtown grid. We've talked about it a little bit before, but in getting the public awareness campaign for this particular area and the importance of it, both for the city, but also the potential that this watershed can also be a place for the public to interact with the natural environment, that sort of stretches up through the city and becomes this kind of nice artery, both literally and figuratively, throughout the city. They decided that art and art activations were a possible way to gain public awareness about this amenity in downtown, because a lot of it's happening below street level. So it's your bridges and your roads are sort of crisscrossing it within the grid, and there's this creek that's feeding into the lake at the edge of downtown that a lot of folks who visited Austin sort of know that part of town. And there's a couple different creeks that sort of feed into it. But one of the major ones is Waller Creek, and Waller Creek is essentially going north and south all the way up to and so it's running parallel to one of the major highways and sort of kind of dances up next to it a little bit.
Is this the Capitol Dome too?
And then that's the
Within
Capitol.
sight?
Yeah. So it's you're within a lot of recognizable downtown elements stitched throughout the city. And this is a really amazing natural amenity, and the watershed. So the other part of it is when there are big rain events, there is the potential for flooding. And so water is going to track towards this creek, or the creek starts to rise. And so there was an infrastructure aspect to all this as well that the city was trying to deal with. In terms of flood mitigation and flood control. It's ideas about climate that you and I've talked about before. So all those things sort of dovetail into what is Waller Creek and the Conservancy, and ultimately Creek Show becomes this sort of interesting public face of it all for several years. And now this year, one of the things that they have undertaken and now has been realized, or at least the first big phase of it has been realized, is a redevelopment of a large park that was already on the path of Waller Creek. And so it was a public park, but had sort of fallen into disrepair, and it did flood from time to time. And so some of these mitigation efforts, were highlighted in this park, and the realization that much land sort of in downtown could be really turned into a great amenity for the public, as well as solve some of these other issues. And so Creek Show, I think I would describe it to you, is that the artwork sort of started really pretty close to the lake, kind of down at the base of the creek, and then has slowly migrated, whether by intention or not, year to year up the.
Yeah.
And,
I would think
now,
though. Oh, sorry.
Now is at this park that just opened this year.
Oh, okay. So this made it. I mean, I would think if they were, there's an interesting strategy to that, as far as your initial, when you mentioned the use of art, and I would almost call it art and architecture. The designed elements are occupiable as a beacon or a way to raise awareness of this natural or a natural amenity, and it's as a creek, right? It is a directional natural environment, right? You have water moving, and so it goes from an origin source to an outlet, right, to the lake, and sort of highlighting the various stages or the points along the creek would make sense. So if there was an intention behind it, I think that's kind of a smart move to sort of, because just like now, if you made a comparison to like urban environment, downtown Austin is not just downtown Austin, right? I mean, you have different pockets of characteristics that are different all throughout. And so activating a space in this portion may not be the same as activating a space in some other part of town. And so the sort of serendipity or the outcome may not necessarily be predictable. And that sort of unpredictability is probably a good thing. And so that's just the way I see it as an outsider, right?
Right. Well, and I think unpredictability is sort of a nice way to even look at Creek Show itself. I mean, is that there's an unpredictable aspect of what art gets selected and who's participating. And then there isn't specific sites as it's there are sites in a sense, because people traditionally were using the same sites over and over again. But even with now that it's started to migrate up the creek, what's sort of interesting for me as somebody who's gone several years in a row now is that, and then also participated myself, is like the site that we worked at, there had been 3 or 4 installations at it prior to us. We were the last one though to occupy that site. The following year, they had moved further up. And so in all these successive years, and now this particular year, this is the first time that these particular sites that are in these 2 sketches have ever had art. And so there's that unpredictable nature of it. And it's like, it's sort of that, when you build it, will they come? And how will they enjoy it? And what's the reaction going to be to it?
Yeah, I'm flipping to the other one. But
yeah, and this one too is one where there is a large permanent built pavilion, open air pavilion by Thomas Pfeiffer and Partners. And so it occupies a large portion of the park site that all these artworks are now housed within, or at least were housed within for this Creek Show.
Mm-hmm.
And it in and of itself is sort of an artistic architecture piece. And one of the installations sort of in the right of this sketch, it looks like something is sort of hanging there. And so they used the framework of this trellis, this white transparent trellis frame that's sort of over the top of the stage. They used it as the means to hang sort of lit pieces in sort of in a repetition that you kind of walked through this environment, which was I thought pretty effective. And its positioning on the site is sort of it bounds and sort of creates an edge towards downtown on one side. The sketch sort of looks back towards the creek side, and there's another artwork there on the far left. Mm-hmm. And those were inflatable pieces that had sort of a cactile. Is that a word?
I think it is now. That's good.
Yeah, but they
look like agave kind of.
Yes, there you go. And they were a big hit for sure. I think from an interaction standpoint, I mean, it was like Bouncy House meets art and agave in this brand new park. I think the idea of sort of super scale was really, really effective for those. And I think they were well cited. Really liked the way that they sort of created their own little environment within the park. There were some more delicate artistic pieces. And the previous sketch I thought was maybe one of my favorites in terms of the built aspect of it. Also because you had multiple vantage points. This particular one that's drawn, you picked up on it right away, is it's got this great vista back towards the cabin. And so you kind of get this sense of where you are in space in downtown, yet there's this layering of space. And so the sketch really tried to capture that. I didn't do this one on site. I admit I spent a lot of time on this one afterwards, but I think it was a personal challenge. And I knew it when I saw it. How I wanted to draw it though was that the foreground, there's sort of a limestone pathway. There's a lot of what's for a park that's dealing with water mitigation. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of cast elements. So we haven't had a big rain event, so I'm not sure how it's all
impervious surface. Maybe.
Yeah, very, very. So that's sort of interesting. But so that bottom portion of the sketch is a cast retaining wall, and then you sort of see some scale figures with the artwork there, and then in that sort of white zone, that's a sort of a play on the figure field, and then behind it, that dark night sky with the silhouette of the parking garage and then the Capitol in the distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how again sort of using these lines as a way to render the sky and a backdrop, and your sort of squiggle landscapes, which are, it reads really well. I like your scale figures too. But I actually did notice your sort of subtle hint at the block work. And so that was interesting to see that now that you mentioned what it is actually and how that sort of figures into the whole space. There's a lot of
landscape depth. Because the landscape is really tiered. And so I was trying to figure out the best way to capture that. And so you were starting to say it, but I think that was the thing, is like there's these layers of space. And but a lot of it's really built up. And I'd been in the park once before without it's only been open for a little while, but seeing it with all the artwork and seeing with so many people in it for the Creek Show itself. This is a show that brings 10,000 people to the park for a show in one evening. And in this case, they're because of COVID protocols, they're sort of controlling access and things like that. But yeah, that activated the space in the evening. It was nice to see, but it definitely some layering of space that I was trying to capture at least.
Yeah, well, I see it. It's really neat for a flat sheet of paper. This sort of sort of backdrop and stage, and almost imagining it, thinking of it almost like theatrically, a stage set with doing the most out of a little limited amount of sort of real estate. And so the vantage point that you pointed out, that you wanted the view that you sketched, and it took you a little bit of a sort of return to get there. But yeah, it's a really nice, and there's sort of heavy render. It's like overly wet pen. I don't know what to call it, like in the way the shadows are sort of in the texture of these poles, which I imagine are kind of like a teepee of sorts, or I don't know what they were intending as
I'm not sure. I didn't necessarily read.
I don't know if teepee is the right word to use. But
well, yeah, I mean, I think that the abstraction of these offset poles, was an interesting scale game, because they all weren't the same height, and they had I interpreted them. I didn't read it, and I should go back, but I interpreted them almost like mechanization, like that they were sort of creatures in and of themselves that were sort of almost stilt walkers, that they were sort of like moving in this landscape, and you were sort of capturing it. And they lit up, the tops lit up, and there also was sort of the way they were fabricated. They actually had some LEDs in the cylinders themselves, so there was one side of it that sort of had a glow to it. And so that was part of the idea with the sketch, was how do I render that part of this is shell and then part of this is light.
Yeah, I can see that now.
All with one pen, and no color.
That's really that's very mysterious.
but yeah, I read in sort of, not reading the artist's description, I read them almost like these sort of mechanization, these sort of elements that were sort of creatures walking into the park, and I liked it. It was sort of fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up see if I can find some more pictures of this year's installation. But one last thing for me, at least, and I'll give you the last word. But I really am intrigued by the concept of bringing awareness to the watershed and the urbanization of downtown Austin. And now that I'm teaching, we recently have been having some conversations about potential projects for next semester in the Detroit area, and over the Detroit, or the Detroit River watershed, which is fairly large. Well, the largest portion of it is through Wayne County, which comes, which is where Detroit is, and funnels into the Detroit River. Wayne County, the math is staggering. It is like 90+% paved or impervious.
Right.
So we've had, if you've read the news, there are some freeways that are above ground, and then some that are sort of below ground, as they try and weave these things throughout the city, that have literally flooded like a bathtub in these heavy rains over the past few years, in these inundation events, right, where it's just a ton of rain at once. And I wonder if there is some aspect of this sort of art and installation that could help to raise awareness in the Detroit area, maybe. And
I think it's certainly something to consider. One of the early individuals that the Conservancy reached out to and brought on board was part of the Highline project, and so they had
was it landscape guy, Udolph?
No. It was one of the community organizers.
Oh.
It was somebody who was interested in the what you're describing, the place aspect of the infrastructure and the impacts of it to the community, and then how art or installation or intervention can change one's perception and awareness of a particular place that's maybe underutilized or needs to be rethought, or fill in the blank. But I think as much as I like what you're talking about, and I completely agree that might be a way to think about it for Detroit, the thing that I would say, the cautionary tale part of this, maybe that's where we kind of pin it and end on, is that in this particular case, I thought it was very and a little bit ironic that now that the park is open, and this is a first phase of a larger, I mean, the project is not done. I mean, there's more work to be done. But now that the park is open, and Creek Show was very integral, to its awareness campaign and to the movement throughout the few years that it's been going on. And the artwork is now in the park for this year, and now it just finished, just closed. None of the artwork was in the water, so none of the artwork was actually in the creek itself. And so I thought that was a missed opportunity. And as somebody who has personally spent time in the creek, I think that part of the story is still really important. And I think was really kind of a missed opportunity for them as they're trying. It became more of an event about the art and the place, as opposed to the event, the art, the place, and the awareness of the bigger picture. And I think that part, I would have loved to have seen more of that. And I think that might be my one criticism of it. But otherwise, I thought the artwork was really inventive. Definitely everyone's upping their game, which is great to see. And some of them were certainly favorites, this one in particular. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good way to set the tone and sort of, we should probably, I think it would be interesting to revisit again. I say this probably more often, but we do always circle back to some things. But yeah, thanks for these really nice sketches and your continued participation in the Creek Show. So have a nice Turkey Day.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, turkey, no mayo, buddy. Cranberry sauce. Can't make any promises.